The arrival beneath three suns. I did not expect silence to be the first thing that greeted me on the three-sun world. After months suspended between stars, listening to the quiet hum of engines, the distant creak of metal under cosmic strain, and my own breathing echoing inside a helmet, the silence felt almost alive. The shuttles ramped low with a hydraulic sigh, and warm air flooded in, carrying scents I had no language for, mineral sharpness, floral sweetness, and something faintly metallic, like rain falling on hot stone. Above me, three suns burned in the sky. They were arranged in a loose arc, each a different hue. One glowed pale gold, gentle but blinding. Another burned white-blue, sharp and fierce. The third hung low on the horizon, a deep amber that seemed to throw like a living heart. The overlapping light painted the landscape in laid shadows, as if the world itself existed in multiple versions at once. I stepped down onto alien soil, my boots sinking slightly into ground that looked like sand but felt firm, almost resilient, beneath my weight. This was Tejal, the first confirmed habitable exoplanet with a stable triple-star system. Humanity's telescopes had argued for decades that such a world should not exist. Gravity should have torn it apart. Climate should have been chaos. Life, especially intelligent life, should have been impossible. And yet, I stood here. I've landed. I said quietly into my recorder. Atmosphere breathable. Gravity, approximately 0.92 Earth standard. Visual confirmation of native structures ahead. I turned slowly, taking in the horizon. The city rose from the plains like a sculpted dream, organic towers of stone and crystal fused together, curved instead of angular, as if grown rather than built. Thin bridges arched between structures at impossible angles, and light shimmered across surfaces that seemed to shift color as the suns moved. No signs of vehicles, no visible weapons, no smoke, just stillness. I had been chosen for this mission not because I was the bravest or the strongest, but because I was the most unthreatening. A linguist, a cultural anthropologist, a man whose face, according to psychological modeling, inspired trust more than fear. I was humanity's first ambassador to Tejal. That knowledge weighed heavily as I took my next steps forward. I did not see them at first. Then I felt them, a prickle at the back of my neck. The unmistakable sensation of being watched. I stopped. Slowly, carefully, I turned. They stood several meters away, emerging silently from between the curved stone pillars that dotted the outskirts of the city. Tall, graceful figures, humanoid, unmistakably female in form, yet alien in ways that unsettled and fascinated me all at once. Their skin shimmered softly, reflecting the three suns in subtle gradients, pearlescent blues, warm ambers, muted violets. Their eyes were large and luminous, pupil-less, like polished gemstones catching the light. Long hair flowed down their backs in colors ranging from silver-white to deep indigo, moving slightly even in still air, as if responding to unseen currents. They wore no armor. Their clothing, if it could be called that, was formed of layered fabric-like membranes that clung and flowed simultaneously, revealing their shapes without feeling overtly provocative. It was functional, elegant, and utterly alien. There were 7 of them. They did not approach. They did not speak. They simply watched me. Their expressions were unreadable, heads tilted slightly, eyes focused entirely on me, not hostile, not welcoming, but intensely curious, like scientists observing a rare specimen, or like historians witnessing the arrival of something long prophesied. I raised my hand slowly, palms open, a universal gesture of peace. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure they could hear it. "I come in peace," I said aloud, then repeated the phrase in several recorded languages, knowing none of them would understand. "I am human. I mean no harm." One of them stepped forward. She was taller than the others, her presence commanding in a way that made the air feel heavier. Her skin held a soft golden hue that mirrored the nearest sun, and faint luminescent patterns traced along her temples and collarbone, pulsing slowly like a heartbeat. Her gaze locked onto mine. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then my vision flickered. Not darkness, overlap. Images flooded my mind. Stars burning, cities rising and falling, oceans under triple dawns, 1,000 generations watching the sky and waiting. I staggered, catching myself before I fell. The alien woman's eyes widened slightly, not in alarm, but in confirmation. She spoke. Her voice did not enter my ears. It entered my thoughts. The human arrives as seen. The others reacted immediately, their attention sharpening, subtle movements rippling through the group. Whispers echoed at the edge of my mind, not words, but impressions, wonder, analysis, something dangerously close to awe. I swallowed hard. "You can hear me?" I asked, unsure if speaking aloud even mattered anymore. The golden-skinned woman inclined her head. "We do not hear," she replied. "We observe. We resonate." I realized then that I was trembling, not from fear alone, but from the overwhelming realization that first contact was not a handshake or conversation. It was exposure. I was no longer just a man. I was a discovery. And on the three-sun world, discoveries were never meaningless. The world that watched me back. They escorted me into the city without touching me. The alien women, who I would later learn were called Jareth, a caste of observers and memory keepers, walked in a loose formation around me, close enough that I felt enclosed, yet far enough that I never felt restrained. Every step I took was mirrored by their fluid movements, as if my presence had altered some long-established rhythm. As we moved deeper into the city, I realized the silence I had noticed earlier was an illusion. The world was alive with sound, low-frequency hums vibrating through stone pathways, distant chimes resonating from high structures, and something like a slow, collective breathing that seemed to rise from the city itself. I glanced at the Jareth beside me. "You built all this?" I asked, more to steady myself and expecting an answer. One of them, shorter than the rest, her skin a soft lavender tone, turned her head toward me. "Not built," she replied in my mind. "Guided." The city opened into a vast circular plaza. At its center rose a structure unlike the others, a towering spire of translucent crystal, inside which light refracted endlessly, forming shifting patterns that hurt to look at directly. The golden-skinned woman gestured toward it. "The confluence," she said, "where all seeing becomes knowing." I had read enough speculative xenology to know what that likely meant. A collective memory hub, a living archive, a place where individuality blurred into something vast and ancient. My mouth went dry. "You want me to go inside?" A pause. A subtle exchange passed between the Jareth, too fast for me to grasp fully. "We have waited," the Golden One said finally, "since before your species named fire, since before your ancestors feared the dark. The convergence requires a witness from beyond." I laughed softly, a brittle sound. "You waited for me?" Her gaze softened, not kindly, but with an intensity that bordered on reverence. "For a human." Inside the confluence, the air shimmered with energy that made my skin prickle. The walls were not solid. They responded to movement, rippling gently as we passed. Light wrapped around me, threading through my thoughts, brushing memories I had never shared with anyone. I saw my childhood home, my mother's face, Earth rising over the moon. I gasped, nearly collapsing. The Jareth did not interfere. They were watching, learning, judging. At the heart of the spire, I stood on a raised platform. The golden-skinned woman stepped closer, her presence overwhelming now, her mind pressing gently against mine like a tide testing the shore. "Your kind is young," she said, "but you burn brightly, too brightly. We observe many worlds. Few survive their own curiosity. I thought of Earth wars, our fractured politics, the fragile hope placed on interstellar exploration. What do you want from us? I asked. From me? She raised one hand, palm outward, the air between us filled with cascading images, alien civilizations rising under strange suns, technologies blossoming, then collapsing into silence. Over and over again. Understanding, she replied, and restraint. I felt something shift then, not just in me, but in the way the Jareth regarded me. No longer just curiosity. Something deeper. Responsibility. They were not studying me because I was weak. They were studying me because I represented a future that terrified them. Days passed, or perhaps cycles measured by the shifting suns. I was given quarters within the city, food adapted astonishingly quickly to my biology, and time to recover from a mental strain of the confluence. Always, they watched, sometimes from a distance, sometimes from very close. They asked questions, not verbally, but through shared impressions. How did humans bond? Why did we create art? Why did we destroy each other? Why did we reach for the stars knowing we might not survive what waited there? I answered as honestly as I could. Because we are afraid of being alone. Because we dream. Because curiosity hurts, but ignorance kills us faster. One evening, as the amber sun dipped low and the sky burned with layered color, the golden-skinned woman, whose name translated roughly to Selawen, joined me on a balcony overlooking the city. "You are changing us," she said. I smiled weakly. "That makes two of us." She studied me again, that same intense, measuring gaze. "You are not what we expected," she continued. "You are fragile, emotional, contradictory." Sounds about right. A faint ripple of amusement brushed my mind. "And yet," she added, "you endure." That night, I realized something unsettling. They had not surrounded me out of dominance. They had surrounded me out of caution, because the three-sun world had seen many civilizations rise and vanish, and humanity, it seemed, stood at a crossroads that Jareth knew all too well. The choice beneath three dawns. The decision came at dawn, when all three suns aligned in the sky, their combined light turning the world into a sea of gold and fire. Selawen led me back to the confluence. This time, the Jareth gathered in great numbers, their presence forming a silent ring around the central spire. I felt the weight of history pressing down on me, not as fear, but as expectation. "You will return to your people," Selawen said. "You will tell them what you have seen. And if they don't listen?" I asked quietly. A pause. "Then we will continue to watch," she replied, "as we always have." I understood then what they were offering and what they were withholding. No advanced technology, no alliances, no weapons or wonders, only knowledge, only a warning. The confluence opened my mind one last time, imprinting memories that would fade if I tried to misuse them, but sharpen if I shared them truthfully. A safeguard, a test. When I returned to my shuttle, the Jareth did not follow. They stood at the edge of the city, watching as I prepared for launch. As the engines powered up, Selawen's presence brushed my thoughts one final time. "You arrived as a discovery," she said. "You depart as a question." The stars swallowed Turjal as I lifted off, the three suns shrinking into distant points of light. I carried no artifacts, no proof beyond my own testimony. But I carried something heavier than any technology. The understanding that humanity was not alone and never had been, and that somewhere beneath three alien suns, a world continued to watch us, not with hatred, not with love, but with a careful curiosity reserved for a species standing on the edge of becoming something greater or disappearing into silence. As my ship jumped to faster than light, I whispered a promise into the void. "We'll try to be worth watching." And for the first time since leaving Earth, I hoped the universe was listening.